Whoops. Thought I had the machine ready to go. All right.
Good morning, Columbus, and welcome to another edition of From Our House to Your Home, the Remodeler Showcase. My name is Marty Reed. I'm your host, and the show is brought to you by Frog Hauling. If you need to clean your garage, your basement, and as you said, John, your landscaping, we'll make sure we take care of you. Think of Frog Hauling. And if you're a remodeling contractor and only the best product will do for your customers, and you don't want to pay for more container than you need, think of Frog Hauling. We carry 5 different sizes so we can meet your needs. Well, today I'm talking with John Reichow of R Pro Insulation, and my wife loves him. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. But that's good to hear. I like to think everybody loves us, but you know.
No, well, I'm going to give full disclosure. I met John. He's a member of the National Association of Remodelers, and we got to talking at one time, and I said, you know, I'd moved in from my old house into a condo, and I was telling him, I said, it is freezing cold in this place. And so I had John come out, and we'll get into this, did all kind of testing and blah, blah, blah. And anyways, John did insulation in my house, and actually you did it in 2 parts. First you did the basement, because I said, my floors are freezing cold in this place. And so we did and then you did the full-blown, let's call it the attic insulation kind of thing. So the reason that my wife loves you is she no longer freezes in the winter.
So it works,
and in the summer, she doesn't have to crank the insulation up, or the thermostat up, because our thermostat is set 5 degrees higher than it used to be to get the place cold.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do today, I want to talk to you about the whole process of insulating a property. But before I do that, I get to put you on the spot like I do everybody else. Introduce yourself.
My name is John Reichow. I'm the owner of R Pro Insulation, located in Pickerington, Ohio. My wife and I own and run the company. We're a small family-owned company. We specialize in what we call retrofitting insulation, which basically means existing properties, older homes, and even newer homes that have insulation or efficiency deficiencies. So in a nutshell, we pretty much do all things insulation, whether it's fiberglass, cellulose, spray foam, fiberglass bads blown, air sealing of properties, and also the energy auditing and testing of the properties.
And we're going to spend some time talking about that, because, you know, people that don't know, and I was like everybody else. I didn't, you know, mine was a retrofit, and I had no idea what it meant to insulate. And when you came out and did your testing, I went, wow, I didn't know all this was involved. So we're going to explain that today, but I'm going to back up for a minute and tell everybody, you need to go to John's website, and all you need to do is just Google R-Pro Columbus, and even if you go R Pro, it'll come up in Columbus, the website. And the very first thing that you need to look at is, on John's website, you're going to see all of your certifications.
Yeah, we're involved in a number of things.
Yeah, and you are certified. At the time, there was an American Electric Power program and a Columbia Gas program that you worked with me on. We got some rebates, but what was more impressive was there's only a select few contractors that are certified to work with them, and you're one of them.
That's correct, yes. It's a short group.
Okay, and you know, I said I met John at a NARI meeting, and John is won Consumer Excellence Awards because everybody's happy with the work. So I congratulate
we're proud of those things.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole, you know, you probably have 15 to 20 of them listed of your, you know, the certifications and endorsements that you have. And I think it's really important, because I always stress I only bring on the best of the best, or who I consider to be the best of the best. So now, having said that, let's talk insulation. One of the things that I think is really important. Anybody can come in, you know, it's that dark area upstairs. You look at it and you go, I don't know what I need. The house is cold or the house is too hot. I want you to go through the testing process that you go through. You put this big blanket on my door and you did something else.
Yeah.
So kind of walk through how you determine what people need.
Well, let me start by saying this. I think a lot of homeowners really underestimate insulation or what it takes to do it properly. Most people would just think, oh, I just need to have somebody come out and, you know, blow some more insulation in my
Blow
house.
it in there,
Yeah,
yeah.
you know, just blow it in there. And you know, a lot of people think, well, I'll just do it myself. You know, that, you know, they're like, I'll go down to Home Depot and, you know, get the material and
Right.
do it myself. And you know, as every professional is going to urge you not to do it yourself, there are good reasons why. And you know, starting out with what we like to do is perform what we call a blower door test.
Okay.
And what this blower door test does is it's kind of hard to describe, but it's basically a computerized fan that we put in the front door or an entry door of the house. And what we do is we literally depressurize the house with this fan, and it has some instrumentation on it that literally tells us how much air is infiltrating this house. So we have a number of calculations that we will do based on the configuration of your house, and we'll come up with a number which would be considered the standard number for your house.
Okay.
So after the testing's complete, it gives us a good idea of where you stand versus where it should stand. And it also, you know, while we're depressurizing the house, it also gives us the opportunity to physically feel the leaks, where they're coming from in some cases, like doors, windows, or just leaks in the structure. It also amplifies our ability with the thermal cameras that we'd be using to see the things. I always kind of use the analogy of it. It kind of makes your house light up like a Christmas tree with a thermal camera. We can see where the deficiencies are much clearer when we use the blower door to accentuate them. But I guess what I'm getting at the end of the day is you don't want somebody to just come in and blow insulation in your attic.
Yeah.
Or just go start doing a bunch of air sealing or sealing this up and this, you know, without knowing where the numbers are, because you can actually make a house too tight too. And believe it or not, a lot of times, you know, you're surprised you find a house that's literally too tight. You know, when I say tight, it has not enough leakage in it to begin with. And, you know, that's a whole nother problem where you can have some indoor air quality issues that can lead to
And I know
mold and things like that.
Yeah, and I know of people that have had that new construction
Yeah.
where they develop mold problems, and I never knew that. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not involved in this, but if you don't have the proper ventilation in an attic, what do they call that? Creeping frost comes. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
there's-
all kind of crazy things.
Well, if you see frost in your attic, it usually occurs in the winter, and what that generally is, it's a combination of some things. It's a lack of insulation. It's also some air leakage through the structure in the attic deck, compounded usually with some lack of ventilation in the attic itself. So what happens, the warm air rises up through the structure, through the insulation faults, and then that warm air hits that cold roof deck and it starts creating frost, which ultimately is condensation freezing. So
Which can, now you're talking about
Yeah.
ruining the structure
yeah,
of
that
your house.
leads to mold problems.
Now,
is
what's
what
the other
happens.
problem that happens when the house is sealed too tight?
Indoor air quality is usually manifest in, you know, too much moisture. It's not able to change the air in the house enough. What the Building Performance Institute deems as perfect or ideal is a 35% air exchange in the house. And what that really means is every 3 hours, your air is completely changed once, or 35% every hour is changed. So I think in your case, I mean, I may not remember the exact numbers, but you had like a 65 to 70% air exchange. When we
Was
found
that
your-
why
yeah.
my house
Oh, yeah,
was cold?
and that's what's going on that people don't realize. Yeah, you can blow all this insulation in the attic, but if you're still changing air through all the gaps and cracks
Yeah.
in the house, you're still having to reheat new air too much.
Yeah.
So that's where it becomes largely inefficient and uncomfortable and excessively dry also, because in the winter you're getting outside dry air in there. So in the summer months, what can happen is if the house is too tight, you know, you start, you know, it's more humid, and you start trapping too much moisture in the house, and eventually it migrates, usually rises up to the top of the building, and you start seeing, you know, mold issues at some point in certain cases. So it's very complex. You know, every house is different, and there's so many variables. But that's why I stress it's important to find a true professional in the trade and do the proper blower door testing, so you should know where you started and where you finished when you're done with that house. And in some cases you get them a little too tight. We have to open them back up a little bit and add some ventilation to them to get them back to where they should be. So not very often.
Do you do anything other than a blower door test?
As far as testing,
Yeah.
I mean, the basic practice is to use the blower door to depressurize the building. And that sounds more dramatic than it is. We're basically just putting a small vacuum on. We're not like trying to crush it like a can or anything.
No, it was.
But we're gonna depressurize it, and like I say, that helps illuminate the house as to where the faults and leaks are. And it'll tell us. We can get a good indication where there's missing wall insulation and things like that, or any leakage that is affecting the insulation. So another thing a lot of people don't realize, and this is the importance of what we call air sealing. For example, if we're insulating an attic and the house has a lot of leakage, before we even start doing insulating, we're going to go through the whole structure of that attic deck, and we're going to be sealing all the plates where the walls join the attic. And a lot of times there's bypasses around chimney, which are large holes, gaps, bulkheads in the bathrooms where they hang down, and those are big bypasses usually.
I forgot all about that because I remember you did that for me.
You had some pocket doors on your house too that were a real problem.
I had pocket doors that were a problem, and the second thing I had was what do they call can lights in the ceiling?
Can lights are a big problem, very common these days too.
And they just went up into the ceiling. They weren't. You put boxes around them, special kind of boxes for the heat.
There's a couple reasons can lights have to. You can't take them for granted because number one, if they're old, they're what they're called non-IC rated, and what that means is insulation cannot contact them. Meaning non-IC stands for.
And I'm sure that were what mine were.
Yeah. I think some of yours were much older, and that's okay. We can work with them, but they require a special cover that keeps the insulation off them and kind of gives it an airspace around there. But what they also do is they seal the air leakage that goes through the can lights.
I had a ton of it. We put our hand up there and felt I never imagined it.
Yeah, and people are putting so many of these things in the houses these days. I mean, they're great, for lighting, but a lot of times the homeowners don't realize the impacts of what they're doing to the efficiency of the building. So, there's covers we can put on the backside, and then they foam seal them to the deck so they're airtight, and it also solves the fire risk problem with the air spacings needed for non-IC or IC lights. But there's just a number of things that we do in the attic, and when they're insulating an attic, they're spending far more time sealing structure and preparing the attic rather than actually blowing insulation. That's actually the easiest part. So to compare to the do-it-yourselfer who goes down to Home Depot and grabs some insulation, rents a machine, and just goes and blows it. We call it a blow and go.
Yeah.
It's almost puts us in a position if they start having problems to come back. It's much harder to deal with because now we've got to wade through all this insulation to seal the structure. So whole nother problem.
I didn't do that. I called in our pro.
Well, one of the benefits for us in this business is not many people want to go in their attic in the first place, so that helps. So.
Oh no, it was too high. Okay, real quick, we got to take a break here in a minute, but one of the things we need to talk about is, I think people think about insulation when their house is cold.
Absolutely,
they don't think about it when their house is warm. So in other words, summertime, I saw a tremendous impact on being able to cool down my house. Talk a little bit about that. It's always a good time to do insulation, right?
Well, I can go on for this for quite a while, and the thing that astounded me in entering this business is that people do not associate a hot or warm, uncomfortable house with insulation at all. The first person they call is their HVAC guy.
Yeah, my furnace isn't working.
Exactly.
My air conditioner's not big enough. Right.
And it's a combination of everything, of course, but I find that it's actually harder to cool a house than it is to heat a house.
Wow.
For example, like in your case, you have a natural gas furnace. Natural gas furnaces have a lot of heating power, a lot of BTUs in them. They can easily heat a house, and natural gas is at really low prices right now, record low prices. So it's very inexpensive to heat even a grossly inefficient house. However, when you get down to cooling the house, air conditioners are typically undersized or just barely at size for the house. And it's very expensive. Electricity is getting more and more expensive now, so they have a much harder time removing the heat from the house, especially if you have a high air exchange rate in the house like we talked about earlier, where you continually are pumping hot air into the house. And another little known fact that contributes to that is warm air has a higher pressure than cold air. So it's just like weather systems, warm air and cold air, high and low pressure. So that's part of the science too. So if you can picture being 100 degrees outside, your attic is probably 140 degrees. If you have air leakage in your attic, in between what we call the attic deck, in between the attic and the house, all that warm air in the attic is literally pushing through the gaps and cracks in your house into the cooler area that you're trying to keep cool.
Yeah.
So the colder you try to make your house, the more it wants to infiltrate with hot air.
It's a losing
battle. And that's why air sealing is so important in the summer.
Okay, so here's my suggestion, folks. If you're hot, call John. Because I mean it. When we first moved into our condo, I would put that thermostat down to like 62 degrees or whatever to try to get the place cool. I don't turn it down below 70 now, ever, to get it cool. Now, I will say, as part of what you did, we had the audit, and I got a proper modern thermostat. So that, that made a difference, too. The old thermostat wasn't calibrated right. And if you get people and they go, well, I've got it down to 60 degrees. It doesn't mean anything because the thermostat's not calibrated right.
Right. Yeah, that could have certainly been part of your issues.
Who the heck knows? All I know is it just feels more comfortable in the place. Okay, we got to take a break. And when we get back, John, one of the things I want to talk about is the different kinds of products. For example, you did some spray foam in my basement.
Yeah.
And just so people understand the different methods to insulate or different products that you use, okay?
Right.
Okay, we'll be right back.
You got about 9 or 10 minutes.
So 29.
Yeah, I'll give you
Okay. Sounds good. Now, we covered
did
what
we fill 15 there?
Huh?
Did we fill 15
Oh, yeah.
minutes?
Oh, yeah.
over.
See what I mean? It's just like, poof, it's gone.
Yeah.
I know.
Goes quick. Time flies when you're having fun.
Did I miss anything yet so far that you wanted to touch on, or?
It's not me, it's you.
Well,
Yeah.
It's
You
your
probably
company.
want to mention your website.
Whatever you want to talk about. That's right. We got to hit that
Your
twice.
website and phone number.
That's right.
Or whatever
We're gonna
you
hit
want
that
people to
again.
get in touch with you.
We'll start with that on this next segment.
I like to have it written down because I have a brain fart. I'll end up giving my cell phone number because that's the one you're used
Actually,
to.
I think it's on there. Right there.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah. No, I know it. I'm thinking about something.
You don't want to give out. You want to give out the correct number to folks.
Okay, let's go.
Here we go.
Welcome back, everyone. Once again, we're talking with John Reichow, our pro insulation here in Columbus, Ohio. One of my favorite people because I now live a much more comfortable life because of his company. And as I said earlier,
And cheaper.
Cheaper. Yeah, it is too. We haven't mentioned that. My bills did go down significantly.
They absolutely should.
Yeah.
I always try to tell people, and people are always skeptical, of course, as they should.
Sure,
be.
they think that's an old salesman's trick.
This is one of the very few projects you can do to your house that will pay for itself in time.
Yeah. Well, you
Think
get
about
comfort and it pays for itself. Okay, you know what we need to do? Tell the folks how they get in touch with you, what your website is.
Okay, you can reach us at 614-458-8526. Or you can reach us on the web at r-pro-insulation.com. That's r-pro insulation.com.
Okay, so what we need to talk about now, and I remember asking you this question. I started this by saying, my wife first came to me and said, man, the floors in this place are cold, right?
Yeah.
So I called you up, and I, like a real good neophyte, said, can we stuff some insulation in those rafters in the basement or whatever? And you also taught me something else. I thought I was going to insulate a crawl space, and you told me not to do that. And you told me the reason not to do that was because the heat ducts were running through there. Anyways, you explained to me all the things that I needed to know, but you used foam. Tell people
Right.
what foam's
If
good
I
for and
recall-
where.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, we insulated the crawl space walls in your crawl space and the rim joists.
Yeah, we did.
And the rim joists of the basement all the way around the
But
basement.
didn't put insulation in the flooring because
Correct.
you just wanted the heat to travel.
That's a common mistake that we see all the time. Somebody has a cold floor above a crawl space like you did, and they said, well, we're going to put some insulation in the floor underneath it. And that wasn't the correct solution in your case because your crawl space was connected to the basement. So it's part of the basement's conditioned space.
Yeah.
So the appropriate boundary for that was to insulate the walls and seal up the rim joists. And what was happening in your case, and this is very common, is the air infiltration through the rim joist area of the basement and crawl space is where all that cold air is coming through. And then it just kind of sits in there as the lowest point of the house. So your floors are probably hardwood above there, if I remember correctly, and
right.
that or tile. It's just really cold on those types of floors. So the reason we chose spray foam in that part of the process was it has some features that fiberglass and cellulose products don't offer, and the biggest one is moisture. Spray foam is not only airproof, it's also vapor-proof and waterproof. So when you start sealing basement walls for finishing or the crawl space walls, you should really be thinking about using closed cell spray foam because it pretty much eliminates the possibility of mold or moisture or mildew problems in the future.
And it was a really simple process. They came in and just sprayed up the top of the basement wall and the joist. There was like a pocket there, and they sprayed that.
Yeah, that's the rim joist area.
Yeah, and it made a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I didn't understand it. I'm like a middle unit in a condo, but once you did that, it tremendously got warmer on the floors.
Yeah.
I mean, you're like the magic man, John.
I like to think so.
Okay, so now we've talked about the foam, but there's, talk a little bit about what's the difference between a blown-in insulation and, people always talk about, and it's probably all of our exposure to go to, one of the big box stores and let's get some R30 insulation and lay
Like
that.
a rolled,
Yeah,
we
I mean,
call
what
it batten product.
I think you blew into mine. Well, it was
Yeah.
kind of a combination, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they're going to have to use bats in some sort of a situation, like walls and stuff in an attic. But typically, the most practical way to insulate an attic is with the blown product, whether it's fiberglass or cellulose. They're both blown, what we call loose fill products. And the reason is it not only does a better job because it just kind of goes around all the irregularities of the attic because it's blown.
Yeah,
you don't have
you
to
can
cut
get
it,
everywhere.
fit it removes a lot of workmanship issues. We don't have to carry all the bags up and try to get them through an attic scuttle hole and drag them through your house and all that. When we blow it in, we just simply bring a hose in through the house somewhere and put it in the attic and just start blowing it, and it does a fabulous job. And it
Fills every crack.
Yeah.
It's like painting with the paint sprayer.
Yeah,
Kind of, it fills
Yeah.
every crack and crevice.
Yeah. And it's much more cost effective, and it does a better job.
Now, when you put that in, do you have to worry about over time settling and redoing it?
You will with cellulose products. Cellulose is a recycled newspaper product, so it's not going to generally last the life of the home. It's it's a paper-based product, so it's going to tend to deteriorate and decompose over time. The other disadvantage to cellulose as being organic and paper-based is it can absorb moisture and hypothetically grow mold. They do some chemical treatments to it to inhibit all that, but the product we use in your house was Owens Corning Pro Pink, which is top shelf fiberglass that will last the life of the home. Never can support mold growth or absorb moisture or settle, deteriorate, or any of those things.
Okay, is there any danger to that product? Either one?
Well, from the safety aspect of fiberglass, this new modern fiberglass, it's extremely safe. It doesn't contain any chemical additives. In Owens Corning case, the only thing they add to it is the color pink, for their trademark. But but it's a very safe product.
Okay, and do you have to worry? One of the things that people have talked about in the past with the fiberglass is, it gets into the air. And we talked earlier about, you know, the exchange rate of air within a home, how important that is.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to worry about that with the modern products?
Are you talking from a health?
Yeah.
Okay, you know, I'll mention this the best I can. I'm not a chemical
Sure.
engineer or anything, but Owens Corning has actually designed this new modern fiberglass in a pretty remarkable way when you think about it, because safety is their number one concern. And historically, fiberglass has caused some problems with scar tissue in the lung.
Right.
But they've actually developed this new fiber that, for one, it can absorb moisture, like I mentioned earlier. However, if an installer or homeowner or anybody was to inhale that fiber, it's literally designed to dissolve in the lung from the lung fluid. So it's
We don't
really,
have to worry about
it's
that.
It's really a remarkable feat of engineering.
Okay.
What I've been told.
Well, John, once again, I want to thank you. You're always a great guest because you're the
Thank
guy
you.
that educates the public. I mean, honestly, we get people on the radio show and they don't bring an educational element to it. So I'm going to give my own testimonial. I'm going to repeat myself here. John did my condo, and I can't tell you the difference that it made. It's already paid for itself. And John works with Columbia Gas, and they have some rebate programs and things like that, and he'll be happy to help you through that because, like we said earlier, he's one of their, we'll call them the selected contractors that's allowed to participate in the program. Tell the folks once again how they get in touch with you.
You can reach us on the internet at r-proinsulation.com, or you can call our office at 614-458-8526.
Very good. Okay, thanks for listening. I hope that you got some good information about insulating your home. And I would tell you folks, don't wait till the winter till you're cold. If you're thinking about, hey, you know, my house is too hot, in the winter it's too cold, now's the time. Get it done because you'll start saving today, right?
That's right.
And that's what it's all about, comfort and saving. I mean, there's not a better combination out there. So once again, thanks for listening, and we will see you again next week. Thanks, buddy. You're good as always.
was
You did a
easy.
great
Great
job.
job.